Yes, God is present here and now. And in the awareness of God's presence, let us pray. Father, Mother God, we give thanks for this opportunity to be open to the awareness of your presence in this moment. We let this be a practice so that it is easier for us on Monday and Thursday and Tuesday and Friday to be open to the awareness of your presence. We allow this moment to be pristine, pure, unencumbered by our expectations, to allow this moment to unfold naturally, beautifully. And we rest in the security of this love that comes forth through us from you, lifting us, healing us, transforming us. We feel it at work now. And for those in our experience who seem to have a need for the awareness of this love in their lives, allowing it to flow through them, lift them, transform them. We hold them in consciousness and we see that it is so. That your love streams indeed unconditionally through each and every one of the expressions of your presence in this world. And for this opportunity to share in this celebration of your love, we give thanks. And so it is that together we say, Amen. Good morning. Okay, I'll scratch your back. What's the other side of that? If you'll scratch mine. I'll scratch your back anyway. It's okay. This series that we have been on, it has unfolded naturally. I will not claim that there is a grand plan that I have set out, but in the early goings of this year, in fact, just prior to the first of the year, we had a burning bowl. That allowed us to remove the obstacles to our advance in this spiritual quest. Then we had a new name that was offered to us in meditation to allow us a new way of being in this present time. Then we talked about this scary word, commitment. Not a 4-letter word, I think it's an 8-letter word, but nonetheless it is a scary word for many of us. And then we talked about persistence. And persistence, of course, is a double-edged sword, but persistence is a virtue until it's carried too far. Well, today we're going to be talking about sharing the load. Because this spiritual quest is not just a quest that we conduct solo. It is a quest that we conduct in community. It is very difficult for us to be in the world on a spiritual quest without those around us who share a similar kind of motivation, a similar kind of mindset, a similar kind of energy. We hear about the spiritual aspirant that climbs a slope in the Himalayas and finds a cave and has agreed with the villagers down below to bring him or her up some food on a periodic basis so that they can be in that isolation and strive for that oneness, for that experience, that peak experience. But I suggest to you that that is not the way to get there. It's a way to get part way there if you have difficulty focusing your intention, if you have difficulty focusing your energies. But there is another way, and the other way is to be in the world with all of the distractions around you, to be here and still have that purpose, still have that motivation, still have that intention of striving for that experience of the oneness that we all have the opportunity to experience. So, community. Community is a way to do that. And community falls into the appropriate position in this series of talks because we have an annual meeting that is coming up right after this, potluck, an annual meeting. And I would invite each and every one of you to be here, whether you're here for the first time or you're here for the 77th time or the 454th time. So it is community. Community. You know, community has been a long haul. We have had community since the dawn of our species. It is estimated that we rose as a separate species something like 1.2 million years ago in the savannas of Africa. And in that arising as a separate species, that we had the opportunity, certainly not then, I mean it was even before then, you see colonies of slime mold, right? So community is not just about higher intelligence. Community is a way that we be in the world. And we can isolate ourselves from community, and we will pay the price for that. But an example of how community has held together. You know, the Native American, National Geographic did a worldwide DNA analysis some years ago. And they're still processing the data. And it turns out that Native Americans, we think of Native Americans as being people who came across from Siberia, right? Well, it turns out that they have done a detailed analysis of the DNA of Native Americans and peoples of Asia. And they found that Native Americans are more closely related to people of the steppes of Russia than to the Asians. Now, there is also Asian DNA in there. Now, keep in mind, this is 40 to 50,000 years ago. This isn't 1.2 million years ago. This is 40 to 50,000 years ago. It appears that there was a group of people from the steppes of Russia that went east, that settled somewhere on the middle China coastline, intermarried a little bit, but not a whole lot, because that DNA that is in Native Americans shows just a trace of that Asian influence and is more like the Eastern Europeans than the Chinese. Okay? So here is an example of a community that moved from the steppes of Russia or thereabouts east, established and continued their community, and then moved about 15, 20,000 years ago, as the Ice Age still had the oceans lowered and there was indeed a land bridge along the Bering Strait, that the migration occurred, and that migration continued all the way to the tip of South America. So we have from Africa, we have rising up into Europe, along the coastlines probably, to the east, and then moving inwards. Then we have later a group of people moving to China, then up over the Bering Sea, establishing. Okay, so what we have then is we have these communities that are defined by some particular characteristics in DNA. And those communities held together, we know they held together because we don't have just one smeared out DNA, right? We have characteristics that are representative of these various communities. So communities are age-old. But here in this day, I have my holster I don't have my smartphone with me, but imagine I'm holding up a smartphone, and I can go on Facebook, and I can find my community very easily, right? I can find those people who are interested in astrophotography. And wow, I'll have a whole list. In fact, I'm on a bulletin board for someone who has a particular piece of equipment called SBIG, Santa Barbara Instrument Group, that uses that equipment for astrophotography. So I am there in this, seeing all of these beautiful pictures of those objects from deep space that are taken by amateurs. And wow, I can do that, right? That's an interest of mine. That is part of my community. And so it is. We have meetup.com that has all of these different communities that you can join. We have, in addition, so we've got the internet to get us connected with all of these people of similar interest. But I suggest to you that that is not building community. It actually is weakening community. It is weakening community because it is very easy to say, oh, I don't like what that person said. What a jerk. I'm out of here. Well, you see, community is not about finding the place that you're most comfortable. Community is about finding the place where you are going to grow. When I was, until I was 11 years old, we lived on a farm in Missouri. And, farmers are, they're out there, they're doing their solo thing, they're, plowing the South 40, and they're harrowing the North 40, and they're putting corn in the East 80, and so it is that they are building their land, right? And the focus is for the harvest. Well, one summer, it was in the July-August time frame, probably more like August, because we were having soybean harvesting coming up, and my dad came down with appendicitis. Well, appendicitis, tractor, they do not mix. And so he had his operation, and here the crops were ready to harvest, and you don't go on vacation. You don't take sick leave during harvest time. Well, what happened? The community turned out. We had tractors and combines parked all over around our house. We had 25 to 30 farmers from miles and miles around that heard about Daddy's appendicitis, and they showed up. And in one day, there was, at that time, I think there was probably 250 to 300 acres of soybean that needed to be harvested. We had a 640-acre farm. And in one day, the harvest came in. One day. Because the community turned out. It wasn't as if, they gathered every day and had beers down at the local pub. But they knew that they depended upon each other. They knew that if things got tough for them, that the community would show up. And it wasn't just about what can the community do for me, but it was also about what can I do for the community. Too often we look at community and we could say, well, is this serving my purpose? Well, not. Okay, I won't invest the time. Sunday morning, I'm tired. Well, no big deal. They won't miss me. That is not true. If you are absent, your energy is missed. Community is about the giving and receiving. It's about the natural flow. It's about prosperity in the energy. When Buddha set down his Eightfold Path. Patrick, could you put up the first slide for me? When the Buddha came down with the Eightfold Path, he said, here are the things that you need to pay attention to in order to gain this thing that I have experienced called enlightenment. You need to have right perspective. You need to have right intention. You need to have right speech. You need to have right action. You need to have right livelihood. You need to have right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. Who was he speaking to? He was speaking to his community. Community was a given. These things are things that you do individually. Community was a given. When Jesus decided that he was going to undertake this ministry. Patrick, next slide. In Matthew 4:18 to 24, we see, as Jesus walked by the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Simon, who was called Peter, and Andrew, his brother, casting a net into the lake, for they were fishermen. And he said to them, follow me, and I will make you fish for people. Immediately they left their nets and followed him. As he went from there, he saw two other brothers, James, son of Zebedee, and his brother John, in the boat with their father Zebedee, mending their nets. And he called them. Immediately they left the boat and their father and followed him. This is before Jesus' ministry as it is recorded in the Gospels. What he was doing was what? He was building his community. He was drawing together a group of people who were interested in finding out what he had to share. Okay? Now let's look at this in the environment that Jesus was in. First of all, he had the temple priesthood, and he had all of that structure, that superstructure, that social superstructure, that was defined by the priesthood. And then he had the Roman garrison, and the Roman garrison of some 5,000 troops that were very readily keeping the population under control because of the priesthood and their influence on the society. And then he had a bunch of people that were unaware of what he had to teach. Now, let's break that down a little bit. The temple priesthood. We can look at that metaphorically, and we can say that temple priesthood is about the traditions that we face. It's about the common habitual thought stream that we engage. It is about that presence of structure in our consciousness, in our social consciousness. The Roman garrison. The Roman garrison can be looked at metaphorically as the forces of the world. The time that we need to invest in our job so that we can have a house over our heads and food on our table. About the political and social influences that we encounter. Excuse me. And then we have the unaware population. These are the people that do not yet know that what we have to share in the community is something that is going to help them come out of their habitual train of thought. Okay? So, what Jesus encountered at the turn of the first millennia is very similar to what we encounter. Not just me as a leader of a spiritual community, but all of us, because we are all leaders in some way of our spiritual community. So community is something that is important because in community we are able to put on a new set of clothes. We're able to try a new way of being. You know, this incarnation that we're in, I suggest to you that it is for us to grow our awareness. But growing our awareness means change. And change can be uncomfortable. Change can be scary. Change can be something that we avoid at all costs because, gosh, what's that going to do? You know, I don't know what the outcome is going to be, but here I have this opportunity to change, and it's been going okay so far, and I'm confronted with this opportunity to change. Should I? Or will I just step back here to my comfort zone? Community allows us to step in to a safe space so that we can try on these new clothes, so that we can try on a new way of being, so that we can take on new ideas and put them into our practice in our lives, so that we can indeed grow, so that we can become more aware of God's presence in each and every moment, so that we can become more aware of the Christ in you and 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 everyone around us, regardless of the evidence to the contrary. We have in community an opportunity to practice a new way of being safely. So when we wake up on Sunday morning and say, gosh, you know, I'm just not feeling up to it. Yeah, okay, you make the decision. It's always your decision. There's no sin in being absent, but just be aware that your absence will be felt. Imagine what this community would be like if the only people that showed up were the people that needed something to take. And there was no one here that was in a position to be able to give. What a starving community this would be. We depend upon each other, not because of what we can get, but also because of what we can give. You know, there's an old saw that says that if you're depressed, help someone else feel good. If you are tired, put out some effort to help someone else do something. If you're lonely, be a friend to someone. That is to say, if you're experiencing some absence in your life, give forth that which you feel an absence of. Love is just like that. If you're feeling an absence of love in your life, it's only because you have decided to close off the faucet that allows that love to pour forth from the heart of God. And you are the conduit for that. You are the vessel for God's love. That's why you have been given the responsibility to be the Christ, to be the harbor of the Christ in this moment. You see, it's not by accident. It's not some kind of divine throw of the dice, let's see how this works. But rather it is part of the whole design, is that we each are a conduit of love. We are each the vessel of the Christ. We are each a representative of God in this moment, if we choose to be. And that's the point. It's a choice. There's a story of a minister that noticed a fellow that was absent, and he had heard from other congregants that the fellow was feeling depressed, so he decided to call on him. Knocked on the door, and the fellow came and opened the door rather glumly. And he invited the minister in. He sat down by the fire, and he just motioned to the chair, and he didn't say anything. He sat down, and they both stared at the fire for a little bit. The minister took one of the fireplace tools and reached in and pulled a log off the stack. And they sat there and they watched the log lose its flame, lose its glow, even lose the smoke that was coming up from it. They saw the log go cold. The minister stood up and left. So what's the story here? We are each an important part of the community that we have chosen to join. Patrick, could you play that video for us?
Canada story came from a viewer of the National. A high school teacher, Darrell Butchert, noticed one student doing something he found a bit odd. Well, it turns out that student opened a door to a whole new way of thinking. The school is Clark Road Secondary in London, Ontario. We'll let Joanna Remiliotis introduce you to the student.
At first, no one knew who he was.
We started noticing this young man standing at the door, holding the door for 20 minutes at a time, 5 minutes at a time, day after day.
Most people didn't know his name, so they simply gave him one.
We call him Doorman. The Doorman. The Doorman.
We call him the Doorman.
Have a good day.
Thanks.
See you later.
Bye-bye. Yeah. It's kind of scary to go to school. I didn't really want to. Every day I walked through the halls, I kind of felt like I was a ghost, kind of. Yeah.
School has been hard on Josh Yont. He was bullied every day for years.
They just tell me I'll never be good enough. Kind of tore me apart inside.
Josh and his family moved to London last year. A new school, a new start. It was when he decided he didn't want to be invisible anymore.
I just feel if I put myself out there and be something to them, too.
And so it began.
Morning. Good morning. 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 Welcome.
On his first day, and every day since.
Hey, how are you?
And why did you choose opening a door?
Just a simple And welcome. And just effective people appreciate it. Welcome.
I kind of surprised everybody at first because, no one's really that nice at high school. It's high school.
I thought it was pretty strange. Yeah. After a while, I knew that he kept on doing it, so I thought it was good.
It was like, he's opening the door.
But instead of becoming a target again, something remarkable happened.
An example, one person in my hall, they dropped their binder, and then there's two people rushing to help that person pick up all the papers.
I find more and more people are willing to do that and go out of their comfort zone to say hi to people that they don't know.
Since I've seen him do it, I've started opening doors, like Heather said.
You want to be more positive towards other people.
All right. Pretty good. How are you? Good.
And Josh saw the biggest change of all.
No problem.
Just watch what happens when we catch up with him in the hallway.
People just love what I do. It's every day. People always say thank you, and people smile, and it's really great.
And it only gets better.
Felt kind of special.
On prom night, he was voted student with best personality and prom king.
And I was like, okay, and then I get this, and I was like, oh, it's awesome.
Your life has really changed.
Yeah, for sure.
Just from opening doors?
Yeah.
So I'm going to buy him, pink fuzzy
His mom says she can't believe how much her son has changed.
He's totally done a 360. He really has. He's gone from very sad and almost depressed to, happy, and he wants to go to school.
I was kind of stuck in a box before. And now I kind of came out of fighting.
And found a new, better place just by daring to be kind.
You have a good night. No problem.
Rhino Vermiliotis, CBC News, London, Ontario.
What did he do? Here he was experiencing being bullied for years. And yes, he had the opportunity of the transition of moving from one community to another. But when he was in that new community, it wasn't about the new community just embracing him and saying, hey, welcome. But rather he stepped out and he put out and he made himself a servant of those around him. Jesus said that the greatest of you will be the least of you, and the least of you will be the greatest. Here is a young man who made that intuitive decision to be someone new and to express love, to be a force in his new community. It was purely his choice, just like it is purely your choice. It is up to you. We'll have our meditation. And in this new moment, we have the opportunity to choose. How are we going to be right now? How am I feeling? What is the feeling that I'm experiencing right now? Look inside. Feel what you're experiencing. Is there an opportunity to relieve an absence or a seeming lack? What gift can you give to relieve that? What is the song that sings within you? What is it that makes you feel fully alive, connected with God, connected with each other? Is it the way you express, or is it something that you do, some gift that you can offer, some love that you can express to someone else? And in so doing, that experience is there. That feeling of giving and loving, embracing and lifting. Here in this moment, what are you called to give? What makes you feel fully alive in this moment? Is there anything obstructing your giving that gift, whatever that gift is? We have this song that is so powerful for some people and so off-putting for others. How could anyone ever tell you that you're anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you that you're less than a whole? How could anyone ever fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How connected you are to my soul. We sing that to each other so that we can help others be lifted. Yes, it's a burden for some, but it is such a blessing for others. Are you willing to be in that space to give and receive love? To give and receive encouragement? To give and receive the acknowledgement that we are indeed connected at the soul level? Are you willing to have the courage to step into that space and be the blessing for someone else, even though it's uncomfortable for you? Yeah, sometimes growth is messy. Sometimes it's fearful, uncomfortable. But that's what we're here about. To be the expression of God in this moment. To be the light here in this moment. And for that realization, we give thanks. And as we come back into this space, let us come back in with the Lord's Prayer.